And welcome back to another episode of our Friday review. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. And as you know, we've been working on walking down the limitless living path. This week, we've been talking about our intellect and how that plays a part in our metabolism. As you know, dysfunctional metabolism is at the root of many of our chronic diseases. Those are things like diabetes, prediabetes, fatty liver, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and on and on and on and on. And those are the things that we hear a lot about in the news. Right now, there are over 1 billion people on the planet that have either prediabetes or diabetes. And so what we've been doing is we're walking through that path to say, how can we reverse? That's right, reverse diabetes. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And we are living a limitless life. And limitless living says that we are not allowing anything from outside of us or anything from inside to prevent us from doing what we need to do to be healthy. We are presenting our best self, our best health, and our best plans for our life. We're not staying in those boundaries. We're not staying in those confinements. We are breaking free. If you have questions, go ahead and put that in the comments and put a Q in front of it. If you are new, go ahead and put new, because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And let you know that I am excited that you are here in this for this episode of our fasting review, as we walk through how to prepare for a fast, how to get through a fast, and then of course how to break the fast so that we can get those benefits that we see. And if you know how we do it here, I've got my monitors that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute. I've got my meters, I've got my Dexcom clarity report, which you'll see here in just a little while, and we're going to walk through that so you can see what's been going on with my blood sugars and since we've been going through this week. So you'll see that there coming up. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. This is my contour meter. Here's my keto mojo meter, and then of course right below me you'll see that is my Dexcom clarity report that we'll take a look at to see what my actual blood sugars are, and we'll walk through that as we have our discussion about fasting. Before we get into that, I want you to know that as we walk through the path of limitless living, as we are working on reversing our diabetes, as we're working on improving our metabolism, there are several things that are available to you that I want to make sure that you are adding to your regimen. And I'll talk a little bit more later about this, but I want you to understand that there are several things that you can do even now as you are trying to improve your metabolic health. Whether you have high blood sugars, they've told you you're pre-diabetic, you're borderline, they've told you that you've got to lose weight, you have fatty liver, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're at risk for heart attacks, or you've had a heart attack, you've had a stroke, or they tell you that you're at risk for strokes, peripheral artery disease. All of those diseases along the spectrum, there are some things that you can be doing even now. And of course, one of the things that we've been doing is we've been fasting. We've been doing our 100-day walk to consistency on our channel. And every morning at 6 o'clock, we've been getting up and we've been walking. We've been doing some education. We've been doing some mindset changes. But we are basically setting ourselves up by creating a structure where you can just plug in and you can incorporate that into your lifestyle. Movement is a big component. The foods that we eat, we've talked about balanced bites. If you've not heard that before, if you've not seen that before, we did several shows on balanced bites, talking about how we eat. We'll show that slide here in just a little while as well. But there are all of these resources that are on the channel, and I want to make sure that you know that you can avail yourself of that. As we get into our new week and coming weeks, we'll talk about the Limitless Living Health Action Plan, Limitless Living Health Action Plan, which will lay out several of those components for you. But even now, you can get out there and you can begin watching those. So make sure that you are not letting those just sit there. And if you've been following, but you've not yet been implementing, I want to make sure that you are doing that, because it is a great way to take charge of your health. All right. So a couple of comments, a story about this week. So as you know, we do a fast every week. And let me make one change here for just a minute. Let's see. Let's go right there. All right. So as you know, we do a fast every week. And let's lay the groundwork for what we're doing. If you're just joining us for the first time, someone invited you, you happen upon this video, YouTube recommended it, you're on Facebook, whatever platform you're on. You heard me talk about at the top of the show that we are working on metabolism. Dysfunctional metabolism is at the root of chronic disease. And we can go down that spectrum anywhere from obesity leading all the way to diabetes. And of course, getting from there, we have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fatty liver, pre-diabetes, diabetes. So often when we talk about those diseases, we talk about them in isolation, as though that one is over there, this one is over there, and they are completely unrelated. But I'm saying to you right now that they're not unrelated. There's a common thread that goes through all of those diseases because they are spectrums. And diabetes is really only the extreme form of a lot of the metabolic diseases that we talk about. And the underlying thing that drives all of that is the dysfunctional metabolism. And so our goal is to right our metabolism, bring our metabolism back into homeostasis. Homeostasis means same. So bring it back into normal. The body has an amazing ability to regulate our electrolytes and our blood pressure and cholesterol and even our blood sugar. So by the time you have developed high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and of course, diabetes, the body has been struggling for some time to maintain sameness, normalcy. And when it loses that ability, then of course the disease shows up. And so along with saying to people, we can reverse your diabetes, the other corollary to that is, if we can reverse your diabetes, well, what are the things that we did to reverse that diabetes? Can we prevent the progression too? Right? You see that? So we can come at it from multiple directions. And one of the main culprits of dysfunctional metabolism is the amount of insulin that's in our body. And we really should rename this phrase that we use all the time, insulin resistance. We probably should call it hyperinsulinemia. So hyper means too much, insulinemia meaning insulin in the blood. Because when insulin comes out, insulin actually is very much a culprit in all of the diseases that we just talked about. And so in our space, Dwain Woode MD Live, here on the channel, we are walking through the limitless living pathway, presenting what are the pillars, what are the goals, what are the steps that you need to take to be able to right your metabolism, get it back in normalcy so that you can either reverse or prevent progression or deal with wherever you are at this time. And one of the most amazing tools that we've been using is fasting. Because fasting hits all three of the of the pillars for reversing diabetes. Number one, decreasing insulin, because we just said insulin is the culprit. Decreasing or suppressing the appetite, and reducing sugar. Why insulin? Because insulin, when it comes out, too much insulin. So insulin, by the way, is not bad. Insulin is not a bad thing. But too much insulin is a bad thing. Like sugar in your body is not bad because that's what your body uses for energy. But too much sugar is bad because it starts to clog up a lot of things that it shouldn't clog up. Right? So decreasing insulin, because that's the culprit. Suppressing the appetite, because the appetite is what drives most of our choices in the things we eat. And then reducing sugar, because sugar is the vehicle in our society, in our diet, that really is what drives our insulin level up. So if we can hit those three, then we are well on our way in the process of getting our metabolism back on track. And so as we walk through Limitless Living on our show, Dwain Woode MD Live on Mondays, and we're presenting those steps, and then we are here on the other days where we're looking at the tools on how do we apply those tools, how do we do it right so that we're getting the best benefit from what we're doing. And as you know, I do a fast every week. I do a 72-hour fast every week. And we've challenged our community that everybody, unless you have a medical reason, whether you are pregnant, you're a nursing mom, you have a history of eating disorders, or some other reason, everybody else should be, or you're a child, right? Because we're talking to adults, or you're a child, everybody else should be able to fast at least one 24-hour period once a week. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, okay? And so this, we've had our mini-series that we've been talking about the domains of health and kind of walking through those. And this week we've been concentrating on our intellect. How does our intellectual health affect fasting, and how does fasting affect our intellectual health? And if you didn't see our show from last night, our check-in from last night, you want to make sure you go back and watch that, because it was an amazing show. It was lots of good information about how we can use fasting. Listen to this, how we can use fasting to help us boost our thought process, rewiring our thought process during fasting so that we can become more productive. We can become more resilient. We can have some of those ideas, those things that we struggle with, those behaviors that we're trying to change, how fasting sets us up to be able to do that more easily. So make sure you go back and watch that episode that we did last night. All right? Okay, and so let's go ahead now. Well, right, I started telling that story. So this week, we started our fast on Tuesday, and when I did my check-in last night, I was 53 hours into the fast, and I mentioned that I was going to be cooking, and I have to put my hand up because I'm not such a good cook that I can't taste when I'm cooking without cooking. I can't cook without tasting. And so you'll see my blood sugars here in a little while. You'll see a spike in them because that's when I started cooking, as mentioned last night. And usually what I do, if that's going to happen, and the reason that we're doing that is that we are having folks come in. This is homecoming at our school, alumni weekend. And so we got folks who are coming into town. So I am responsible for making some things for that, for the gathering. And so I cook, and typically when I cook for the weekend, I'm cooking on a Thursday or a Friday. If I'm planning ahead, I will actually do my cooking on a Thursday to get ready Friday, Saturday, because it's usually on a Saturday, Friday evening, Saturday. And so what I sometimes will do, though, is I'll push my fast into Friday. So like last night, I was 57 hours. And so we pushed that into the morning. And so probably 65, let's see, what's 57 plus 9? Almost 66 hours of fasting. Started cooking, tasting, and then what I usually do is I get back on the fast after that. Okay, so you'll see some blood sugars go up there. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the numbers that you see. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that right now. And so here you'll see this is my Freestyle Libre. And right now my Freestyle Libre says that my blood sugar is 87. And you'll see for most of today, we've been kind of straddling right at 100. Earlier in the day, right around 9 a.m., between 6 and 9, there was a spike there, and that's usually a toothpaste issue. And then further back there, you'll see a little spike, and we'll take a look more closely to that when we look at my Dexcom. So let's go ahead and move over to the Dexcom right now. And so this is what we've been seeing. So Dexcom, the reason I like the app is that I can actually put my finger and we can actually see the numbers. And you'll see there we've been kind of straddling 100, the low 100s, right? And this was what I was talking about earlier, where you see that spike between 6 and 9 o'clock, right? So that's a toothpaste and then going back. Let me go 20. Let me look at 24 hours. Let's look at that. And so this was our check-in last night, and then you see spiking up, 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 up. So this is kind of in the kitchen, right? In the kitchen, so spiking up there, and then peaked at was 151, and then started coming back down. Okay. So roughly maybe 60 hours, I think 63 hours or thereabouts. So that's what my blood sugar is, and we'll take a look more closely at each of the days going through over the last several days. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at my monitors. So I've got my Keto Mojo and my Contour. Let's grab a test strip. So brown for blood sugar and then blue for ketones. I'll need a lancet. Let's grab one of these guys. And then I'll need a strip for the Contour. Let's grab this one. Okay. All right. So if you think you know what my ketones are going to be, go ahead and drop that in the drop that in the chat, in the comments. All right. So let's open up, and this is my if I can get it open. Ooh, that one is a little hard. There we go. So this is the blood sugar for the Keto Mojo. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the ketone strip as well, because as you know, if not, I may have to do a second stick, which I don't want. And then, of course, my lancet, and I don't usually use the lancing device. Here's just the lancet. Open it up. There's a needle there, and I have been using this third finger. Ow, ow, ow. Let's make sure I get a good stick, because otherwise I've got to. All right, let's see if we get a good. So that one, I thought I would get a more brisk drop of blood there, but let's start with this. Okay, so that one is good. I think I can get at least one more. The trick here is usually, okay, there, 84 is what it says on the Keto Mojo. Let's go back here, and you'll see 103 on the Dexcom. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this out and get the ketone strip in so we can see what ketones are. So what do you think my ketones are? What do you think they are? So after I broke the fast while I was cooking, got right back on the fast, and as you saw, the blood sugars came back or coming back down. So let's see what that ketone is going to be with that combination, right? Boom, boom, boom. So 85 on the Contour, and ketones right now 1.3, right? So not bad. So even, and this is a good point for you. And I'll make this, well, let me make it now. Often people will ask me, is it possible to get off the fast and still maintain ketosis? And the answer is yes. In fact, we have people in our community that their goal is to remain in ketosis. And so the things that they eat don't cause big spikes in blood sugar, and as a result of that, their insulin doesn't go up, and so they are able to stay in ketosis. Now, let me do one thing here. Let me pull up my Keto Mojo app, and let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, here we are. So let's go ahead and let's sync that, because I want that number to come over to the app, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So when we talk about ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So right now I'm in nutritional ketosis, and we usually want ketones to stay 0.5 or higher. So let's go ahead and let's see. So it's pulled over, and those are the numbers that we just saw there. Let me do it this way. There we go. So those are the numbers you just saw there. The 84 was the blood sugar. The 1.3 is my ketone. And then the big number that you see there, the 3.5, is what's called the glucoketo index. And it is taking the glucose and dividing by ketone. Now the glucose you'll have to convert. It's the glucose divided by 18, and then that number divided by 1.3. 1.3. So if we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and just pull up my calculator so I can show that to you. Okay, so 84, right, divided by 18, and that divided by 1.3, right? And that's where we get 3.5. And so that's how you calculate it. And the divided by 18 is really a conversion to, because here in the US we use milligrams per deciliter, and in other countries they use a different system, units for blood sugar. So we just have to convert it to that system and then divide it. And that's what gives us what's called the glucose-keto index. So if we look at those numbers, we want blood sugar to be as low as possible. We want ketones to be as high as possible, and we want the glucose-keto index to be as low as possible, right? So the higher the ketones, the lower the GKI is going to be. And the reason I love seeing the ketones and looking at my blood sugar is because if my blood sugars are low and my ketones are elevated, that means that my body is in the process of converting fat into energy. And a part of that conversion requires that it breaks down what are called triglycerides. And those triglycerides, there is a tri part and then the glycerol part. And the glycerol part of that molecule can actually be turned into sugar. And so sometimes you'll see, and you've seen here probably before, where my blood sugars are riding right around 70, and then they dip below 70, and they come back up, and they're kind of going up and down around that line. And I get excited when I see that, because the question that you got to answer is, if the blood sugar is low and I'm not eating, where does the sugar come from to bring the blood sugar back up? Particularly if I'm doing an extended fast, right? We said 24 to 36 hours is when we begin seeing glycogen go away. So if that's the case, where did the body get it from? And it got it from the fact that it's burning fat and using that for energy, and we get the ketones out of that. Awesome. All right. So let's see. Let's go ahead. And so when I do my fast, when I go through the week, as we are moving through the week, the one thing that I want to do always is actually do a check-in. And the check-in allows us to think about the things that we're doing. And it's really a way of evaluating how I'm doing during the fast. As you hear me say here in a little while, fasting is not just about not eating. There are a whole host of other things that go on, which we'll comment about here in a minute. But when we fast, we want to make sure that we're remaining safe, and we want to check in with ourselves to see, how are you doing? How is your body doing? And the three places that I talk about when I talk about checking in is we talk about our physical, our mental, and our emotional. How are we doing in those three spaces? And you'll recognize that those physical, mental, and emotional are actually three of the domains of health that we've been talking about. Remember, we talked about 8 domains of health, and physical, mental, and emotional are I was going to say the top 3, but not necessarily the top 3, but they are 3 of the most important ones when we talk about the domains of health. So let's go ahead and let's do that right now. So in terms of checking in, physically, and I just kind of described this week. So when I was at 57 hours when we checked in last night, or even as I got further on before I started cooking and before I ate, I was not feeling tired. I was not feeling weak. I had done a good job this week of resting. I've done a good job of hydration. Yay. The one comment I would make is that my son and I started an exercise program. And so he's been doing it with me 3 days a week. I've actually been doing it every day. And so I have to actually up my fluid intake. Because I did notice, was it last night or the night before, when we were out, and we've been lifting weights, and when we were out before, I noticed that when I went down and came back up, when I picked up some of the weights, I did for a moment felt a little woozy, and that just said, because I've been walking as well. So remember, we're doing the 100-day walk to consistency, and then now we are in the gym, kind of lifting, and so I didn't amp up, I didn't ramp up my my fluids. The other thing is that I've talked to you about fasting workouts. And that is the idea that when you're fasting, your body produces growth hormone. And those growth hormone levels, when they go up, are really one of the body's ways of maintaining muscles. And so you get recovery faster. So for those of you who bodybuild, your recovery is better. You get bigger bulk faster, and you are able to maintain better shape, better form in the muscles. So fasting workouts. So for most people, I say that I want you to cut back. You want to do light exercise while you're fasting. But if you're doing the fasting workouts, then the fasting workouts mean that you are fasting and you are going through your gym routine, okay? So that was the one thing this week that I did notice. And so going into next week, as we continue that process, I'm going to have to amp up or ramp up the amount of fluids that I'm taking in. Mentally, as you know, let me back up to physical for a minute. So when we talk about the physical, the things that people will talk about is their fatigue. So they're going through the day and they feel like they're hitting a wall, or they feel like they're walking through quicksand, or they're walking through mud, or they're walking through molasses. It just means they're just tired, fatigued. If you are not rested, when the body is transitioning from one energy source to another, because remember, that's what happens during fasting. You go from glycogen to fat to using ketones. Then you will find that is a lot more pronounced. You feel it more. You're going to feel it anyway, but if you're tired, if you've not rested well, then that can become more pronounced. So one of the keys to preparing is that you are rested, that you're making sure you're getting good rest during that process. Okay? Just wanted to go back and say that. The other thing is, if you're not hydrated, you will feel your heart rate will go up, because if your volume goes down, in order for your body to keep delivering the amount of oxygen that you need, the amount of nutrients that you need, and then taking the waste away from those cells, then the body has to increase the speed with which the blood is flowing, because it has to do the same amount of work with less volume. Okay, so that's why sometimes you'll feel palpitations, lightheadedness, dizziness, because when you stand up, if you're not doing well, if you've not been hydrating, then the blood pools, and there's not enough volume to send the blood all the way back up to your heart, and then of course to the brain, and so that can lead to feelings of lightheadedness and dizziness. All right, and then mental, going and just coming on the heels of the physical. If you're not rested, if you're tired, then your thought process suffers as well. So people will say, oh, I feel like I'm in a tunnel. I feel fuzzy-headed, foggy. My thought processes aren't clear. It takes me longer to do calculations, longer to make decisions. Okay? So that all comes from the mentation. And then, of course, emotional. And so my thought process was clear when we were at our 57 hours, as we moved into that 63 hours, and of course now doing well. And then emotionally, we've been preparing for some folks to come into town and to hang out with us, and so that's been exciting. I'm still out there cooking right now. Got some stuff still going, and just excited. So physical, mental, and emotional. How are you doing in those spaces? The other thing to make a point here is going back to our domains of health. You want to make sure that as you are assessing your health, that you are hitting all of the domains, and you'll see the 8 of them there, right? So whether we talk about the physical, the emotional, the mental, the social, the spiritual, the intellectual, which is what we did this past week, the environmental, and of course occupational. So those are and those are the things that you want to make sure that you are addressing. Our limitless living inventory is a good way to begin looking at those. So go back. There's a episode that we did now, probably about I want to say 8 weeks ago, because we've been going through the 8 domains. So we started out 9 weeks now. We started out by introducing them, and then we walked through each of the domains. So we did the last one here on this past Dwain Woode MD live show. So make sure you get back there and watch it. And so physical, mental, and emotional. So let's go ahead and let's hop into our discussion about fasting. And as I've mentioned before, there are pillars to health. And limitless living, those pillars fit right in there. And there's some things that we will talk about as we move into the future, but just remember, food, right? And balanced bites is how we address that. The types of foods that you eat. Remember, well, I'm not going to say that now. I'll say that in a minute. So, food, activity. So we're moving. We're using our fasting as a mechanism for helping us in that process. We are getting good rest. We are making sure that we are dealing with the intellect, which is what we dealt with this week. So all of those are places that we want to be in. And so when we talk about fasting, fasting is not just about not eating, right? Fasting is not just about not eating. It is a process that is dependent on a lot of the domains of health. Yeah. So the intellect means that you have to understand the things that we're doing. You have to understand how the body works. You have to understand what fasting is doing. And we talked in our last episode about an amazing process that goes on in fasting where the body's creating that beta hydroxybutyrate, which is one of the ketones. And that is like supercharging the brain. And then brain-derived natriuretic peptide, right? That is like miracle grow for the mind. And so if you are struggling with a behavior, if you're struggling with a habit, if you're struggling with even some process that you're trying to figure out, a great time to begin working on that is during fasting, right? Set yourself up to say, hey, this week I'm going to be fasting, and during my fasting time, I'm going to spend some time doing some introspection. I'm going to spend some time looking at those things that are challenging for me. So what I'm doing, and I have I think I mentioned a friend of mine, I was watching his show recently, and one of the things that he said that he has is what's called and I forgot the exact phrase, but so I'm paraphrasing. It's basically a going to do list, right? Some things that I'm going to do. So what I recommend you do is get a list together of the things that I want to do, the things that I may be struggling with right now. If you've been watching us on our Dwain Woode MD live, and not the live, but the walking that we've been doing in the morning, you will remember, or you'll see that one of the things that I recommend that you start is what's called a I Can Do journal. And the I Can Do journal is a journal of things that I can do. These are the things that we are putting in that helps to strengthen our inner coach, because often we forget about the things that we are good at. Right? And we're not able to access those readily. And so the I Can Do journal is really just a way of putting some things in place that says, okay, these are some things that I know I can do, and that gives support to our inner coach. That's a whole nother conversation. But fasting. So back to fasting. And so really what we want to talk about is here in this space, how do we fast well? How do we do the fasting well so that we can use it and get all the benefits from the fast for our metabolism? And so basically we're talking about all that you need to know, right? The things that you've got to know, things that you should be mindful of as you're going through the fast. And I break the fast up into 3 different sections. 1, how to prepare for the fast. 2, how to get through the fast. And then 3, how to break the fast. And each of those components is as important as the others. Right? People say, well, which one is most important? No, all 3 of them are important. Because if you don't prepare well, then you don't have a good fast. If you don't do the fast itself well, then obviously. And then if you break the fast in a way that undoes the things that you did in the fast, then you've lost the benefit. So we always want to make sure that we are doing all three: preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, and then of course breaking the fast. And so how to get ready for the fast? Some things first that we want to know is why is preparation key? Preparation is key is because how you prepare for the fast determines the ultimate success of the fast. It determines the ultimate success. Well, why is that the case? Well, so as I said, fasting is not just not eating. There are lots of things that go into fasting. There's mindset. There is visualization. There is understanding what's going on in the body. Why are those things important? Well, let's kind of walk through some of those. Number one, your brain, your mind will remember this fast. And if the fast doesn't go well, the next time you want to fast, the inner critic, right? We got a coach and a critic. The inner critic will remind you of the reasons why you shouldn't fast because it didn't work the last time. Well, you remember the last time you felt all tired? You remember the last time you were so hungry? You remember the last time that you fasted and you still put on weight? You remember the last time you were nauseated? Right? So all those things that the last time will derail our next time. So it's not just necessarily about the fast, but it is about getting through the fast and being able to do the fast continually. Because we're not just looking for something for you to do today and tomorrow. Limitless living is a lifestyle. It says that I'm doing what I need to do for the rest of my life. So what we want to do is we want to set you up for the best possibility of success. And so preparation is key, one, because it helps you as you move forward on the pathway to be able to use fasting as a tool to reverse your diabetes and improve your metabolism. Number two, if you do a good job of getting into the fast, preparing for the fast, then the fast itself goes much simpler. For example, the things that you eat leading up to the fast have a direct effect on how hungry or how stimulated or the cravings that you have in the fast. We'll see here the first 6 hours are called the postprandial period. And during that time, the things that we ate coming into that fast directly impact how the metabolism works, directly impact how the hormones that are working in that time go, directly impacts how full we feel, how quote unquote hungry we feel, the cravings that we have. All of that comes from the thing that we just ate. If we are not doing a good job of hydrating as we lead up to the fast, or making sure that if we are doing strenuous activity that we begin cutting that back as we move into the fast, that also can have an impact on the fast. If we're not rested, then we feel it more pronounced, transition when we're going from carbs to fat. That has an impact on the fast. If something happens as you're going through the fast and you've not told, well, let me give you a couple of things. One, it's your wife's birthday. It's your husband's birthday. It's an anniversary. It's a family gathering. It's a homecoming, alumni weekend. It's whatever the special occasion is. That's happening during the fast. And if you have not thought about that and said to yourself, one, either I'm going to not fast on that day, or I'm going to fast on that day, what ends up happening is you make a decision in the heat of the moment. And if you make a decision in the heat of the moment and you decide, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and fast because of the pressure, then your brain picks up on that. And you know what it says? Well, we knew this was going to happen because you can't fast anyway. I mean, who can go for 24 hours or 36 hours without eating? That doesn't even make any sense. The brain will say, Yeah, yeah. Every time you try something, you can never fulfill that, right? You can never get through that. The inner critic will say, "Yeah, we knew you couldn't do it." And those thoughts, you know what they make us do? They make us eat more because remember habits, emotions, access, and taste. Those emotions drive our eating. Our emotional state can push through our desire not to eat. So what ends up happening is that we go and we haven't made a decision, and we make a decision in the heat of the moment, and we feel like we're a failure. And we end up eating a lot more because now we have to pacify. We have to feel better, not just because we ate, but we felt bad about eating. So make a decision. Either you're going to fast or you're not going to fast. If you decide you're going to fast, that's great because now you have decided. And you can begin putting things in place to make that successful. And if you're not going to fast, not a problem because you're not fasting anyway. Right? But that has to occur prior. You have to prepare for the fast. You have to make those decisions before. You show up, here's another scenario. You show up at an event with your family and you have not told anybody that you're fasting. And so all through the event, everybody's saying, why are you not eating? Why are you starving? Why are you not eating? Oh man, you should try this. You should try that. And after a while, the brain doesn't want to have to make any more decisions. And you, quote unquote, succumb to the pressure because you did not have a support system. So tell your family. Say, hey, I'm and you have to announce it to the whole world, right? But the key people. Your mom, because mom's gonna want to make you eat. My mother does, right? Your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents. Let them know so that you have elicited their help in the fast. So now they're not pushing stuff at you. They're not asking you to eat things because they understand, right? Because fasting, like I said, is not just not eating. It's social, it's psychological, it's emotional, and you can go down that list. All of those health domains, they get involved here in the fasting. So preparing for the fast, okay? The things that you eat. If you eat things that are highly processed, high sugary foods, when you get into the fast, the body has to process all of that. The liver can only store so much sugar in the form of glycogen. And then when it gets full, then it takes it and it shuttles it off to the other parts of the body. But the higher your blood sugar is, the more insulin the body has to produce, or the more insulin you have to take, or the more medication you have to take to bring that down. If you're not diabetic, your body is doing that for you, and it is producing a lot of insulin to combat what you just ate, those sugars or those carbs. And the more carbs you eat, the longer it takes you to get into the space where the body now has depleted what's in the liver and is now turning to fat to burn for ketones. You guys saw my ketones, 1.3. So if you've eaten something that delays that process, people say, well, I fast for 24 hours. Okay, let's assume that's the case. You're going to fast for 24 hours. The first 6 hours, roughly, is what's called the postprandial period. That's where the body's breaking down the food. And if you have eaten something that is highly processed, high sugar, and those blood sugars go up high, then that postprandial period gets pushed back further. So that now it's 24 hours later, and because of what you ate 24 hours ago, the body took a longer time to get into the process of weight loss, decreasing appetite, right? Ketosis, all the benefits that we talk about can get derailed during the fast, even before you start the fast because of what you ate. So once again, preparing for the fast, very, very important because it is setting you up for success or setting you up for not having that good a success, right? So it is preparing physically, preparing mentally, preparing emotionally, preparing socially. All of that allows you to determine what you need to do, what do you need to put in place so that you can have a successful fast. I tell people you should pick what you're going to eat for the last meal before the fast. Don't just let it be random. Don't let it just be random. Because if you haven't picked, what happens is that, something's going to happen. You're going to be running, rushing. Oh, I'm supposed to start fasting at 12 o'clock, for example. Well, if you have not thought about it, what I'm going to eat, well, it's 11:30, it's a quarter to 11, a quarter to 12, and it's getting closer and closer, and you're like, okay, I got to start fasting in 15 minutes. What am I going to eat now? And I'm going to tell you, if that's the case, the thing that's most likely around, if right, environment, the thing that's most likely around are some things that you probably would not have eaten had you thought about it. And some of the things that would cause the blood sugar to go up so that we run into the problem that we just described, where insulin is elevated and it delays our progression into the beneficial or some of the later parts of the fast. Right? So pick the food that you're going to eat. Physically. Get rest. We recommend 7 to 8 hours actually. 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep, restorative sleep. Prepare for that during the fast. So not just, okay, I stayed up all night, whatever you're doing, you've got this project that you've been and now I'm going to fast. Well, you probably can get through the fast, but the way you get through the fast is not going to be successful long term. So make sure you're getting rest leading up to the fast. And then emotionally, if you are coming out of a stressful event, if you are in a stressful event, those are not times for fasting. Unless you have done a good job of dealing with the stress coming out of a stressful event. But if it's going to be your wedding, if you guys are moving and that's going to be moving day, if, somebody in the family is having surgery, and you can go through and think about stressful things that are happening, those are probably not times for fasting. Unless you have a mechanism for dealing with it. And we've talked here about the COPE model, and the COPE model is a way of dealing with stressful events and dealing with triggers, right? We clarify, we observe, we pause, and we execute. Clarify, observe, pause, execute. And if we have that in place and we've been practicing it, then we can get through a fast. But once again, it is all about up here. It's all about our mind, our brain. So that's preparing for the fast. So make sure that you're looking at the right foods. Make sure you have picked what you're going to eat. Make sure you have dealt with rest. You're getting good rest. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure that you understand what's going on in the fast. Right? If you're going to be fasting, what type of fast are you doing? Are you doing a 16-8? Are you doing a 1 meal a day? Are you doing a 24-hour, 72-hour? What type of fast are you going to be doing? And what are the things that are going to happen in your body? What should I be expecting? Sometimes there are things that people have that happen, and if they expect it, if they anticipate it, if they know what's going to happen, then it's not a big deal. But if it just catches them off guard, then that becomes an issue. Right? So preparing for the fast. And that, like I said, is very, very important. So when we talk about preparing for the fast, a couple of takeaways that I want you to get. So preparing is key. And in addition to preparing, make sure we're preparing mentally, right? Because it comes here. Make sure we get rest. Make sure we're eating nutrient-dense meals. And make sure that we have community around us, support around us. And that nutrient-dense meal, let me do this. And I want to pull up for you our Balanced Bites so that you remember what we mean when we say nutrient dense foods. And so these are the, if you're looking at parameters about what types of foods you should be eating leading into the fast: whole foods, minimize processing, no added sugar. And when I say no added sugar, there are foods that you're going to eat that have natural sugars in it. For example, you can go to the grocery store and you can buy orange juice or apple juice, right? And if you look at the packaging, you can see a carton of apple juice or orange juice that says, 35 grams of carbs. And this is just an example. 35 grams of carbs. And then the line below it says no added sugar. Or you can go see another carton and it says 35 grams of carbs, 15 grams of added sugar. So if you're making a choice between those two, then you would choose the one that does not have the added sugar. We're not talking about natural sugars that are in it, but when they're adding additional sugar, that causes additional problems for us. And why do we say no added sugar? Why do we say no added sugar? And I want you to follow this with me. So if my blood sugar is 100, right? If my blood sugar is 100, let me see, what is my blood sugar right now? Let's go over there. Where's my monitor? Okay, here it is. Let's assume that my blood sugar was 100. If I took all the sugar into my body, that 100, and I said, well, how much is that actually? It would work out to be 1 teaspoon or 4 grams. So 1 teaspoon of sugar equals 4 grams of sugar equals a blood sugar of about 100 in your body. Make sense so far? Good. So if you go to a food and you look at the and 4 grams of sugar is 4 grams of carbs, right? So carbs, sugar, same thing. So if you go at the packaging and you're looking at the packaging and you see 35 grams of carbohydrates, that's 35 grams of sugar. And if you see that, 15 grams are added sugar, right? We said 1 teaspoon is equal to 4 grams. So if we take 15 grams of sugar, divide 4 into that, then we get, if we round, it's going to be what, 4? 4 teaspoons? So for that glass of orange juice that you're drinking, that's 4 teaspoons of sugar. Just to give you a perspective. When you eat a slice of bread that has, 10 grams of added sugar or 4 grams or whatever the number is, then you can convert that to teaspoons. So now you get an idea of what the food is that you're eating. So people say to me, well, man, all I did was I ate a biscuit and drank some orange juice for breakfast. I said, okay, well, let's calculate it. How much orange juice did you drink? Well, I drank 1.5 glasses, right? So a glass is usually about 8 ounces. Unless you go to a restaurant, they give you the little tiny glasses. Right, so 8 ounces. And maybe we can go ahead and do that calculation right now. Let me see. Let's see if I find let's see. Let's grab, and I'm just on the internet right now. I'm just Googling, and we're gonna pull up a label. Let's see. Can we do this one? Here we go. Orange juice. All right, and this. I have no affiliation with these guys, by the way. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's a label. All right, and this is I think Tropicana. Yeah, this is Tropicana, and serving per container. It's 110 calories per serving. No fat. And let me see. I think I can write on this. So no fat. There is no sodium. There are 22 grams of carbs with no added sugar. Okay, so that's good, right? In terms of the sugar, so no added sugar. But this right here, this 22 grams of sugar, is equal 22 grams of sorry, yeah. So no, it does have. Ooh, well, how did I miss that? So it says 26 grams of carbs, and from that, 22 grams are added sugar. So let's assume that we ignore the carb part. So 22 grams of sugar, and we said that 4 grams of sugar, or 4 grams, 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon, right? Yeah. So if we say this is 22, right? 22 grams, that equals what? Well, 5 times 4 is 20, so that equals 5 plus, right? Oh, let me get rid of that. So 5 plus teaspoons of sugar. You see that? And so you can actually calculate that. All right. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that point as we're talking about the foods that we're eating leading into our fast, because that has a profound impact on what we eat. And that was on the heels of us talking about our balanced bites. So balanced bites, whole foods, minimized processing, no sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, tasty and flavorful, and then of course portion control. Okay? So that is when we say nutrient dense. When we say nutrient dense, that's what we're talking about right there. We want to make sure that that's the list that you think about when you are thinking about your food. Okay, so that is a takeaway from preparing for the fast. And of course, when we talk about the fast itself, because that's one of the components. We talk about preparing for the fast, getting through the fast successfully, and then of course breaking the fast. So when we talk about the fast itself, we break that down, and I typically do that in increments of 24 hours. Like we do 24 hour, 48 hours, 72 hours. But we can break that down even in smaller chunks. And so let's talk through that. You've heard me say this already. The first 6 hours after you eat is called the postprandial period. This is where the body is breaking the food down. Physically, it is breaking those bonds. It's breaking down the protein. It is chopping it up. The enzymes are coming out to dissolve it. As a matter of fact, that process starts in your mouth because there are some enzymes called amylase that begins breaking down carbs as you're eating. Which, by the way, is one of the ways that things like you've seen on the internet where they talk about vinegar, right? Using vinegar to lower blood sugars. The reason vinegar works is that it inhibits one of the processes that the amylase or those enzymes in your mouth has on the food. And so you don't absorb the carbs as readily. But in the postprandial period, energy is high because blood sugars are high because you tend to eat carbs when you're eating. And those carbs require insulin, so insulin level is also high. And because of that, when the process is going on, our cravings can be very high after our meal. So people will say, I don't understand. I ate, and it seems like I was even hungrier after I started eating. Well, depending on what the composition of the food is that you're eating, the spiking glucose because of carbs will cause your insulin level to go up. And once your insulin level goes up, then the cravings come. The appetite is stimulated. It's kind of like, well, I hear people say sometimes, oh, man, I went for a whole 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I went for an entire year and I didn't eat any of that, whatever that thing is. And the moment I ate some, or the moment I ate a piece of bread, or the moment I drank some juice, then it seems like all of a sudden the cravings came. I was so hungry for that thing. Well, that's because you got that spike in blood sugar. Once you got the spike, insulin came out. When insulin came out, then of course all we now see is those cravings, right? So that's the first 6 hours of fasting. And so understanding that helps you to prepare for the fast, and it helps you understand sometimes when you're in the fast what happened. right? Why was I so hungry? Why did I think I was so hungry at the beginning of the fast? And that's because of the things that you ate. And then the next 6 hours, 6 to 12 hours, is called what the early fasting stage. And this is where your insulin levels begin to go down because the blood sugars, the body has processed the food, it's extracted what it needs, right? The rest goes down the downstream to be eliminated. It's taken some of that and it's running your heart and your brain and your lungs and your muscles. And then it's taken some of it, the excess above that, and put it in the liver. And anything that it has above that, it sends off to get stored in our fat cells and in our muscles. So people will say to me, Dr. Woode, I don't understand something. And I'll say, okay, what don't you understand? And they say, well, all I ate was X. And I put on weight. Or all I ate was Y and I put on weight. Or I just had such and such and look at my blood sugar now. And two things, well, a couple of things, I said two. But one of the things to understand is that the food that you eat right now doesn't all go to run your body. Because if your body has enough fuel to run itself right now, the excess that you give it has to get stored. So I want you to understand this. So if you are well nourished, and many of us are, right? So if you're well nourished, and say your blood sugar, let's start with the diabetic first. We'll come to the non-diabetic in a minute. Let's say you are well nourished, and your blood sugar is 170, 180, 190. When you eat food, the body has absolutely no reason to take that food and send it to your heart so that it can beat, or send it to your brain so it can function, or send it to your muscles so that they can move, or send it to your lungs so it can breathe, because it already has sugar in the body. And so if I'm putting more sugar in, more energy, then the body's going to take that and is going to say, hey, I don't need that right now because my blood sugar is already 175. By the way, a normal blood sugar is anywhere from 70 to 99. Anything above that is higher than normal. So the body takes the food and says, I don't need it right now, so it sends it off to get stored. So the reason you put on weight was because you ate food in excess of what the body needs to function right now. And the body had to do something with it, so it sent it off to storage. And storage in the body, fat cells. And if you're not diabetic, and you're eating in excess of what the body has to store, or the body needs to function, the same process happens, except your body now is producing more insulin. So the more carbs you eat, the higher the carbs you eat, your body, and your blood sugars are normal, your body has to produce insulin to keep that blood sugar normal. But if you also eat in excess of what it needs to run, then the excess has to go somewhere, and that's called storage. And that storage is where our blood sugars go up. Our blood sugar goes up and our weight goes up as well. Okay? All right. So that's the next 6 hours. This is called the early fasting stage. And then if we move beyond that now, we go from 12 to 18 hours, and this is where we're transitioning to fat. So the body has used up what's in the blood. It's gone to the liver, and it's now said, hey, I've used up what's in the liver. So now let me begin turning to the stuff that I sent off to get stored, right? I usually call it the pantry. Let me turn to the stuff that is in my pantry, and let me start breaking that down now. So glucose levels continue to go down. The body is now looking for other spaces where it can get get energy. The liver starts gluconeogenesis, and this is where it's creating glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. So it's taking triglycerides, breaking them apart, using the glycerol part for sugar. And energy may feel like it's dipping. And this is, like I said, when you're not rested, you feel this dip or this change more profoundly than you would if you are rested. Okay, so that's the 12 to 18 hour period. And then next is where ketosis begins, our 18 to 24 hours. Remember, it takes about 24 hours for the body to use up the glycogen. So often what happens, and the reason I recommend at least a 24-hour period, is that a lot of the benefits beyond what we see in some of the intermittent fasting, it doesn't start until 24 hours. Right? When the glycogen is all gone. Now, ketosis will start, 18 to 24 hours. So depending on what you eat, let me say that. Let me make that point. If you eat something that has a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, and your body has to process that, then this phase right here can be delayed because the body is still processing the food that you ate. And so you come into this space a lot later. So if you have had something to eat where the body pushes this process back beyond 16, 18 hours, right? You're only in ketosis for the next 2-3 hours, depending on where you start. And so by what you ate before, you've actually now almost negated a lot of the long-term benefits that you get from fasting. Okay, so that's the 24-hour period. And then if we go beyond that, now the 24 to 30 hour, and we are fully fat adapted. So our body now is in full force, breaking down fat and converting that to ketones. And this is where we see the weight loss begin to really, really take up, right? Really happening, because the body is now burning this. And let's go ahead and let's take a look. Great time to look at my actual weight. And so this is how I track my weight. This is the Fit Index app that goes along with my scale. And as I mentioned before, it tracks a lot of different things. And so what I'm excited about was when I'm doing my fasting, I kind of look at this process because I can see, and let me pull this one up, right? I can see what happens in the fast. Right, so let's see, that was, what's today? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there I was, right, 3 days ago when I started the fast, 186 or 186 pounds. The day before that, 188 pounds. So within the last 5-6 days, so we've gone from 188 down to 185. Right, so a half a pound to a pound a week, half a pound to a pound a week. But when you're fasting, you can go anywhere from a half a pound to 1.2 pounds per day. Yeah, you heard me. 0.5 to 1.2 pounds per day. So I track that. One of the points I made before was that I actually, even though I track my weight, I track all of these other parameters first. Right, so what's my BMI? What's my body fat? What's my fat-free body weight? My subcutaneous fat? What's my visceral fat? My body water, my skeletal muscles, my muscle mass, my bone mass, protein, BMR, my basal metabolic rate. So I'm looking at all of that because all of those have implications on what happens with the rest of my body. And during fasting, if you're tracking this, you begin to see some amazing benefits. When I started, and you guys will recall my story, that when I started, I was 287 pounds, right? So this one, I think there's 260 right there, right? 260 in this. And so as I fast, right, I am looking to see what are the benefits. And I want to remain in ketosis as long as possible. I want to get into ketosis as fast as possible, and I want to stay there as long as possible. So I don't want anything in my preparation for fasting to delay the benefits I get in fasting. Right? Because sometimes what we think, the scarcity mentality, what we think is, you know what? Man, I'm going to not be able to eat for the next 2 days, 3 days, 24 hours. So let me get as much of the stuff I like into me before I get into the fast. Well, what you've just done is you've actually just derailed your fast. And the fast doesn't work as well not because of the fast itself, but because of what we did before the fast. Okay? So when we talk about fasting, once again, preparing for the fast, getting into the fast, and then of course breaking the fast, the other important component in the process. Because how you get into the fast is important, how you get through the fast is important, and then of course how you break the fast is important as well. And those are the three different areas of fasting that I talk about. Preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, and of course breaking the fast. And when you break the fast, the things that you do are just as important as the fast itself. Because if you break the fast, and when you break the fast, you like, man, I have not eaten such and such for the last 24 hours, the last day, or the last whenever. What we end up doing is we come at the end of the fast and we grab all those things, right? All the things that we've been missing, and we eat them. And when we do that, the blood sugar goes up. So you'll see, and let's go back over and look at, actually, let's do this as we talk in this section. Let's take a look at my blood sugars. As we have this conversation, because this is a good one. So when you're breaking the fast, and let's go back to, I'm going to go back to last week when I broke the fast. So I have to go back one day. Here we are. Okay, so here we are. So breaking the fast last week, right? So we broke the fast right around, actually it was right around here. Okay, so broke the fast, and what I try to do when I break the fast is I try to maintain blood sugars that are such that I don't get big spikes. So notice that, and we did a salad, and I think nuts last week. Okay, so salad and nuts. So this is Friday, and so broke the fast, and look at the blood sugars, right? So we started out in the 70s, 80s, and the blood sugar climbed based on the food that we ate, but not to a crazy level, right? So that was there, and let me go to the next day. I gotta scroll down, go backwards. Here we are. So that was Friday we looked at, and then here's Saturday, the day after, right? So notice that, right? So the highest we got there was 117. And so what I try to do when I finish my fast, when I break my fast, is I try to maintain blood sugars that are such, because of the things I'm eating, that it does not cause a big spike in my blood sugar. Otherwise, I have to, my body has to produce a lot of insulin. Because as you know, it's been almost 3 years now, I think, if I recall correctly, that I came off of insulin, right? And so I try to bring my blood sugar down to the point where the insulin that my body is making is enough to keep my blood sugars under control. Now, there are times where you'll see, I don't think there's any on this week, but if you go back, let's see if I go back a couple of weeks. So right here, right? So this was on a Tuesday. So look at that, up to 193, right? So in order, and look at that, so blood sugar goes up and it comes back down, but in order for that to happen, for that blood sugar to come down, my body had to create a lot of insulin to bring it back into normal. So you don't want that to happen often. Not that it's never going to happen, but you don't want that to be the normal. So the things that you eat, balanced bites, have to fit there. And so when we break the fast, right? So when we break the fast, we want to make sure that we are mindful of those things, right? So here's some tips for you. Number one, when you're breaking the fast, or actually all the time, I recommend that you monitor blood sugars. That you monitor them. Because In order for you to get a good picture of what's happening, for you to know what is going on in your body, what the body's doing, what the food is doing, what the exercise is doing, what the sleep is doing, looking at those blood sugars gives you real-time data. And you get to make those decisions. Otherwise, you think, oh, everything is fine, and you don't know what's happening. Number 2, portion control. Make sure that you're eating the right portions. It's often not that people are eating the wrong thing, but they're eating too much of the the right thing. And then you want to eat slowly. It takes about 20 minutes for the signal to get from your stomach to your brain that you're full. And if you just gobble it up, by the time the signal gets there, you've already eaten too much, right? Slow and steady gets the job done. And then you want to avoid sugary, highly processed food, as we've been talking about, because when you eat highly processed sugary food, then the body has to produce insulin to combat that. And once the insulin comes out, then all the complications that we see with insulin come into play. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're doing that. And when you're thinking about breaking the fast, you want to have some considerations. You want to eat foods that are that help you maintain stable blood sugars, as we've been saying. You want to eat foods that are nutrient dense as opposed to calorie dense. You want to eat foods that are gentle on the digestive system. So if you've been fasting, particularly if you're doing one of the extended fasts, don't go out and all of a sudden start eating high spicy food. You get a steak, and I shouldn't say a steak, because a steak, depending on how you cook it, but you want things that are gentle, which is why you see I will break the fast with things like broth, salad, cheese, nuts. I did actually break the fast with some jerk chicken once, and it went okay, but it probably wasn't the best thing because it was really spicy. We're going to have to come back and at some point do a discussion of just the GI tract, the changes that go on in your GI tract when you fast, because that would be a good thing for us to talk about. And then you want to focus on low glycemic index foods. Those are foods that are 50 or less in terms of glycemic index. Foods that have lean protein, healthy fats. Make sure you're hydrated. And this all goes back to balanced bites, as we talked about here a little while ago. Okay. All of that very, very important as you are getting through the fast. Awesome. All right. So let's see. I think I see some of our I see some of our community members out there. So let's hop over and let's say hello to them. And I see Juyon out there, and she says, "Hi, doctor. I am sorry I'm late." I'm just glad that you came through, Juyon. So Gion is saying hi, and Bowie says hi, Gion. Also says hi, doctor. Gion says hi to Bowie, and then Bowie says, "Doctor, I finally got to walking more this week. I got 6 days straight so far, but my body craves more calories on my active days." How do you stay active and fast at the same time? Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna hold on to that for a second. Would you suggest I push to get fat adapted before I resume jogging? I feel so carb hungry after exercise. Interesting. I'm gonna hold on to that one as well. Thank you, doctor, for teaching us and remind us about fasting. From Gion, I think postprandial period longer most of the time because I eat dessert chocolate every day. So it can be. And Bowie, how about your eating routine? So let's go back and let's address an interesting question here. So when I actually start people on a weight management program, when we're talking about losing weight, if someone is not exercising, I don't tell them to start exercising. I don't tell them to go to the gym. Why? Because when you exercise, you actually will have bigger quote unquote cravings, because your body feels like it needs more energy because you're burning energy, particularly if you kind of ramp up and you do the intense exercising. And people haven't quite yet learned how to mitigate or modulate what they eat. In other words, they haven't learned how much to eat to compensate for how much the body seems to be hungry. So what they do is they go to the gym and they'll burn 300 calories and they'll eat 700 calories. They'll burn 500 calories and they'll eat 1,000 calories because they haven't learned yet. So the very first aspects, the very first parts of what we do with patients is really to get them to understand their body. So if they're not exercising, we don't tell them to go start exercising. We tell them to start, just doing some simple walking. Right? Simple walking, just leisurely, and that's really to kind of get your joints moving, right? So we're not putting them on an exercise program. Now, once they have learned to listen to their body, they have a better idea of food, how the body works, then we say, okay, now we need to incorporate movement. And you'll hear us talking about movement as we get into the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. So yes, that does happen, and it's just a matter of understanding how much to eat relative to how much the body needs when it exercises. And that's an interesting thing to begin learning. And she said, would you suggest I push to get fat adapted before I resume jogging? I feel so carb hungry after exercise. So I would say yes. You want to begin working on the body and your understanding and switching probably before you're adding intense exercising to your regimen. Because I've noticed, as we've been kind of working to get ready for this new series, that I am more hungry. Now, once I get into the fast, it's a whole different story, but those days when I'm not fasting in my eating window, yeah, it seems as though, and I said hungry, but my appetite is stimulated a little bit more. Okay, but because I understand now what's going on in my body, I feel that, but I understand what it is, and so I don't have to respond to that. I hope that answers your question. Remember, everybody, that we are in the process of writing our metabolism. That's the goal. And everything that we do is built on the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcasts. Right? It's a mindset. Most of what we do, most of the way we eat, most of the choices we make in terms of health, a lot of it has to do with what's going on up here. We educate. We empower with the tools: fasting, balance bites, the 100-day walk to consistency, our strength strategy and mindset that's coming up. All of those are tools that we use to put into practice the things that we're learning. And then we encourage with the community that you are part of, the amazing community that supports us, pulls us, pushes us, gives us advice, sometimes just listens to us, allows us to lean, allows us to be who we are as we walk through this process. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. And I'm always happy to be here with you, always happy to be in the community. Make sure you join us tomorrow night for Video from the Vault at 9 p.m. Central. On Sunday morning, This Week in Review, 6 a.m. Central. And then on Monday, we'll be right back here for Dwain Woode MD Live at 7 p.m. Central here in this space as we continue our walk through limitless living. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating a life we've always wanted, and we're living a limitless life, which says that we're not allowing anything from outside or inside to prevent us from doing what we need to do to be successful. We're presenting our best self, our best health, and our best plans for our life. We'll see you at the next show. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody.